Your head is pounding. You shake 2 pills into your hand, swallow them with water from the tap, and 20 minutes later, the pain is just gone. You don't even think about it. 48,000 years ago, someone killed a headache the exact same way, except he didn't have a cabinet. He had a tree and his own teeth. And that's not even the strange part. Almost everything you were taught about these people is backwards. By the end of this, the word advanced is going to mean something completely different. The site is called El Cedron, a cave in northern Spain. And in 2017, a team led by researcher Lucy Wyrick at the University of Adelaide did something no one had ever done at quite this scale. They extracted ancient DNA from the calcified plaque on a Neanderthal's teeth. Not his bones, his teeth. Specifically, a teenage boy, 16, maybe 17 years old, dead for 48,000 years. And his teeth told Wyrick exactly what he had been eating in the last days of his life. Yarrow, poplar bark. Both of them are natural pain relievers. Yarrow is still used in herbal medicine today, and poplar bark contains the same compound as aspirin. There they were, in the mouth of a teenager, almost 50,000 years before Bayer put aspirin in a bottle. That explains the teeth. It says nothing about what happens when your body breaks apart. Because here's what the El Cedron boy also had in his mouth. Traces of something that looked a lot like penicillium, the mold that later gave us penicillin. Nobody can prove he knew what it was. He might have simply been sick and eating whatever he could find. But here's what's wild. The chemistry doesn't care if he understood it. Whether he chose it deliberately or stumbled into it, the compound was there, in a Neanderthal's teeth. 48,000 years before Alexander Fleming looked at a petri dish and changed the world. That's not primitive. That's a parallel discovery we erase from the record. And it gets stranger. In 2026, a team led by Tjerk Siemsen at the University of Cologne published something in PLOS ONE that rewrote the story again. The team had been studying birch tar, the dark, sticky substance Neanderthals produced by heating birch bark, and they confirmed experimentally that it has real antibacterial properties, kills pathogens. Neanderthals were already using this tar as an adhesive, pressing stone tools into it to secure them to handles. Siemsen's team found strong evidence the tar appears to have been doing double duty sticking tools together, and likely stopping infections on open wounds. The researchers' conclusion is that this was intentional. The production process is too complex, too deliberate, for it to have been accidental. The birch tar wasn't just glue. It was also, probably, medicine. Stop and feel the weight of that. 48,000 years ago, the same people your history textbook probably called primitive hunters were managing pain with willow compounds, sealing wounds with antibacterial resin, and eating something chemically close to what we still put in hospital IV bags. They didn't stumble into this. They figured it out. But the chemistry is almost beside the point. Because there's a cave in northern Iraq called Shanidar, and what was found there is the real argument, not for how smart Neanderthals were, but for what they actually were to each other. His bones were found in 1957 by Ralph Selecki's team at the Smithsonian. Researchers have been studying them ever since. The skeleton is called Shanidar 1. A male, somewhere between 35 and 45 years old at the time of his death, ancient by the standards of a world without hospitals. And the bones tell a story that's almost hard to read. His right arm was withered, atrophied from the shoulder down, probably from a neurological injury early in his life, Not an amputation, not a cut, just a brain injury that has slowly starved the arm of function. He walked with a severe limp. He had bony growths inside his ear canals, the kind that cause profound deafness. He was likely half blind, and he had survived for years, decades even, in conditions where every calorie required physical effort. In a world where you could not contribute to the hunt, you could not carry your weight on a migration, you could not do the work that kept a group alive. He was a burden. By the cold logic of pure survival, he should have been left behind before he reached 20. He wasn't. Someone fed him. Someone protected him. Through winters, through migrations, through long stretches where food was scarce enough that the people doing the work must have felt the cost. Eric Trinkhaus at Washington University, who has spent decades studying these bones, concluded that Shanidar One's survival was impossible without sustained care from the group around him. Not a week of care, not a month, years, for someone who could not fully pay them back. The flowers at Shanidar are a myth, by the way, the idea that Neanderthals buried their dead surrounded by blooms. That probably came from modern pollen contaminating the sediment, but the burial itself? Real. And Shanidar One's bones? Real. The care those bones prove? That's the most real thing in this whole story. So, here's the twist. You've been watching a video about pain medicine, the yarrow, the poplar bark, the birch tar, and all of it is true, and all of it is extraordinary. But the thing that actually kept Shanidar One alive for 30 or 40 years with a withered arm and no hearing wasn't a plant compound. It wasn't a resin. It was the people who woke up next to him every morning and chose to keep moving with him. The medicine that worked wasn't chemistry. It was the group. Your body still knows this. When you get sick, really sick, not a headache, but the kind where you can't leave bed, the thing you actually want is not a specific molecule. You want someone in the room. You text someone, even if there's nothing they can do. You feel the absence of other people as a physical sensation. Loneliness during illness doesn't feel like a social problem. It feels like pain. Because it is. Because somewhere in the deep wiring of your nervous system, being sick and alone registers as being sick and abandoned, which, for most of your species' history, meant the same thing. Reach out when you're sick. That's not emotional. That's ancient software doing exactly what it was built to do. 48,000 years ago, a teenage boy in a Spanish cave ate yarrow and poplar bark and something that looked like penicillin. And a group of Neanderthals in Iraq chose, for years and years, to keep a deaf, half-blind, one-armed man alive. Both of them are ancestors of the thing you call modern medicine, the chemistry we kept, the other part we keep having to rediscover. You shake 2 pills into your hand. You don't think about where they came from. The bark, the mold, the 48,000 years of slow chemistry between a Neanderthal teenager and a Bayer factory. But here's what's worth thinking about. When you actually needed to get better, the pill was never the whole answer. You needed someone to check on you. That's what Shanidar One got. That's the part that worked.